Hi everyone, today we're going to be doing a clutch slave cylinder and also a flywheel and clutch replacement on a 2011 IPL coupe, or G37. This is the same as a 370Z, also the same as a 350Z HR engine, and it's going to be pretty much all the same for all the FM platform manuals. So we're going to be installing the JWT upgraded slave cylinder. We're also going to be installing the JWT clutch and flywheel kit. This is a common failure. I'm sure everyone who's watching this video knows this. We're going to go over the basics on how to do it. I'm not going to go in too much detail. I'm going to try to make this video as quick as humanly possible. So here we are under the vehicle. We're replacing the slave cylinder simply because it's leaking out. This is a Concentric slave cylinder. It's actually inside the transmission. So if you notice your clutch pedal is on the floor and you can't put it in gear anymore, and you notice that your clutch fluid is also low, it's usually the slave cylinder that's failed. So first step we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing the exhaust system. Now it's up to you how far you want to do with the exhaust. It depends on how damaged and how rusted the exhaust is. If the exhaust is not that rusted, I'm always going to break it off here. I'm not going to remove the cats because the cats are too labor intensive to remove and they're not in the way to remove the transmission. We're going to start from the Y pipe. So these are 14 mil. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure when doing exhaust or rusted bolts that you have a 6-point, or what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6-point socket, not a 12-point. Because it has a higher risk of rounding off. I usually put some freeze off on there, or WD-40, whatever you have handy, before I do anything. Now if it's not too rusted, I'll just break it off of here, these, which are also 14s, so I don't have to drop the big fat exhaust back here, which can be a little bit of a pain in the butt because of the ear location. But if the car is kind of rusted and these look like they're kind of trashed, it's best you just take off the whole piece as one, just to prevent from breaking these. You're going to need a 12 mil and a 14 mil socket or electronic tool, and or just a wrench. But yeah, 14 and 12. 12 is going to be for these things. It's easier to pop these bolts off than it is to pull this off. And then also you have this. So if you're going to remove the whole exhaust, but we're not. We're just going to do these. So 14, 14, 14, 14, 12, 12. 12, 12, 12, 12, 14, 14, 14, 14. Let's get to it. Okay, so we have the exhaust off. Also, another step is you got two heat shields. Just need a 10 mil. There's a 10 mil here and a 10 mil here. And then 4 10 mils, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's these two right there. So the whole reason for us doing that is pulling the drive shaft out. What we're going to need to do to remove the drive shaft is two 14 mil bolts here. That's going to be the last step, however. First we're going to undo these. There's 17, so we're going to zap those off. There's 4 of them, and then pull the drive shaft out. So one step I skipped over is removing the shifter. Now this factory shifter is Loctited on there. There's about an 85% chance you will basically, when you're trying to undo this, you may just straight up rip this leather off. This knob is $285 from Infiniti. So there is a way around it, which I'm going to do now because it's not my car. I don't want to, it's a customer's car. I'm not going to risk ripping this, and I don't want to buy a new shifter. Now if he told me he didn't care and he wanted to put an aftermarket shifter, I can rip it off, no problem. So you just get the vice grips here and here, and then you just twist them and then it'll come off, but most likely you'll destroy this in the process. So since the customer has not instructed me to destroy this, I am not going to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a trick on how to remove this without removing the knob. Now you lift up, you want to grab here, not too far down, but you just want to grab here and lift up this bit, and then the whole thing comes out like that. Now what we do is we unplug the stuff back here. So I unplugged that plug right there. You just press that tab in, and what you're going to do is you just spin this, and what we're going to do is we're just going to be shifting the transmission back and forth just to get the room. So we put it over here in the 6th gear, and then we undo as much as possible. If you want to make it easier to get to these bolts, you can take the whole shift the center console back. There's 410 mils for the rubber boot here, and then once you move the rubber boot out of the way, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna lift it up and out of the way, and then below that you're gonna have 3 more 10 mils that hold the shifter to the transmission. Then you have to go under the car, undo the 12 mil bolt, remove that, then the shifter will lift up and go over to the side, and then all this stays together, because like I said, we do not want to destroy the shifter boot and the shifter, because like I said, they, for some reason, Infiniti Loctites these from the factory. So we'll do that now. I didn't remove it all the way, I just moved it out of the way. Now also what I forgot to mention is there are 2 of these little clips that attach themselves to this little rubber boot. All you have to do is squeeze right there, just squeeze them like that. So we have the drive shaft out. I removed the complete thing. We already have the shifter out as well now. So you just pull that up. That is a bit of a pain in the butt. Just so you know, a little bit of note for after. To put this back on, you line up the front and then you use these little finger things to pull it on back onto these little lip. But there's the 12 mil. All we do now is we just undo that, and then instead of having to lower the car down, up and down again, all we're gonna do is just undo this like that. We already undid those 3 bolts that hold the shifter, and now pull that out and just push the shifter out of the way. There you go. So we're done up top. Disconnected most of those things. Now we move on. So next up is we're disconnecting the sensor 2s. You just basically squeeze there, pull it out, lift it up, hold that out of the way. You don't need to remove them. It does not interfere with the transmission. Then we're also going to remove this connector. This connects the 2 catalytic converters to the transmission. So there's just 4 14 mil bolts, and then we're going to undo this plate. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 14 mils and 2 17 mils. The reason for removing these plates is we got 4 14 mils on the bottom of the transmission that we get from this side, and that's going to be the easiest way to get to it, by removing this. So I went ahead and undid these 4 14 mil that hold the brackets. I undo this whole harness just by the bolts. I don't try to undo these clips because a lot of the times it just breaks them. So I try to do everything within my power to get this harness off the transmission without breaking as many clips as possible. So next up, we're also going to disconnect this line right here, and then we're just going to let it drain. So make sure you have something to catch the leftover clutch fluid. So I'm just going to disconnect it from there, and I'll disconnect this later when the transmission's out of the car. And then we're going to disconnect that, and then here are those 4 14 mil bolts I told you about. 1, 2, I don't know if you can see those. And then also it's a good idea to remove this plate. It's held in by 1 10 mil. Okay, skipped a few steps just because I had to get moving. But you got to remove the bell housing bolts, which are all 17 mils. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 8 in total. This is the tool I use. It's a long 1/2 inch extension with a 3/8 end, and then I use a 17 impact swivel, and then I use a big power bar to undo it because they're very tight on there. That's how I break them loose, and then I just undo them. So, and then if you did everything correctly, and obviously undo the 4 14s that hold the mount, and I'm on a hoist. I'm not going to do this in the ground, but you obviously need a transmission jack, or otherwise you might be dead when the transmission falls on your face, because this transmission does weigh probably about 100 pounds. And it should break loose, and just pull it back and then drop it. That is the clutch and flywheel right there. Here is the plastic slave cylinder. You can see it's been leaking. It's pretty obvious that is the failure. It's not transmission oil that's leaking. That is brake fluid / clutch fluid. And we're going to replace this plastic piece of junk with the JWT concentric slave cylinder, which is a bolt-in affair. And then we're gonna install this lightweight flywheel with the clutch kit. So next up is gonna be unbolting the 12 mils for the pressure plate. Make sure to hold it, because as soon as all those 12 mils come out, this thing will just fall. Okay, so we have the clutch disc off, and there is our flywheel. The clutch actually ended up being pretty munted up. So they're usually, you can hardly make them out, but there used to be like little slits in there, like little vents. So how worn a clutch is how close it is to these divots right here. And this clutch has about 0.5 of a millimeter left. So the good news for the customer is it's bad that it needed a clutch slave cylinder, but the good news is it's not the end of the world. This probably would have had to been done anyways. Just to let you know, when a clutch disc is super smooth like this, it's actually not from like drifting or clutch kicking. What causes abnormal wear on this to wear really quickly, it's usually slipping the clutch too much. The other thing for the flywheel bolts on all Z's and G's is a T55 Torx. What I do recommend to remove these is to have someone hold the front crankshaft bolt and then use a pry bar to undo these. Make sure it's flat and doesn't wobble, because if you round these out, you are going to have a really bad time. But anyways, so remove the flywheel, and then what we're also going to do is, because we're doing the JWT slave cylinder, all we have to do is unbolt the 2 bolts and literally unsnap that, and then put the new one in and snap that back in, and we're done. The JWT is a straight bolt-in, which is why I recommend it. The Z-Speed is what I had in my car. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the Z-Speed, there are more steps. The Z-Speed, you're going to have to screw in one of the bolts because it's actually stuck in there because of the slave cylinder. So you're going to have to slowly screw that in, and it's an Allen. I believe it's a 5mm Allen. And then you put the bottom one on, and then you have to route the lines for the Z-Speed one. Nothing against it, just saying that I like the JWT because it's easier for installation. Also, what we're going to do, which you do need a special tool to do it, there's plenty of things you can Google on how to tricks to remove it, but we're going to replace the spigot bearing for the front of the transmission shaft. That new one comes with a kit. Okay, so we have the new flywheel on. A little bit of a note I wanted to say: when you're doing an aluminum flywheel on any car, what you want to do with the flywheel bolts is you want to torque them down to the rated torque rating that the part recommends. Do all the bolts and then loosen them off and then torque them again. Now this kit and I also recommend to put Loctite, red Loctite, on both the flywheel bolts and the clutch pressure plate bolts, just so they don't back out, because obviously if we're going to put an upgraded clutch on the car, then you're obviously going to drive it like an upgraded car. So you don't want these bolts backing out. Put the transmission back in. We got the JWT one installed there. Pretty straightforward. Make sure to lubricate the shaft. The shaft always needs lubrication before inserting into the hole. This is just a rough rundown of how to do this job. This is not a very detailed. This is just a summarized install. So if you like this, please let me know. I will be doing some installation videos, some pretty much basic, very basic installation summary videos, trying to keep them as short as possible.